Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ready to become automation pros? Today we're diving into Power Automate, the tool that can help you, yes you, escape all those tedious tasks you'd rather avoid.
Exactly, and no coding experience is needed. Power Automate, it's a tool from Microsoft, helps you automate those workflows across all kinds of apps and services. It's like having a digital assistant that never needs a break.
Totally. And remember, Microsoft Flow, well, this is like its evolved form, built for everyone, no matter your tech skills.
And what's really neat is how it takes these complex automations and makes them simple, using that if this, then that logic so it's easy to use, and opens up a world of possibilities to, well, streamline all sorts of tasks.
Okay, so say you're drowning in emails, always hitting reply with the same message. Power Automate can help. You set up a system so when you get an email with a specific subject, boom, automatic personalized response. Think of the time saved.
Imagine, like a virtual assistant, handling those routine emails while you work on the important things. And email's just the start. Power Automate can tackle document approvals, managing your social media, even collecting data and managing tasks.
Wait, whoa, hold on. That sounds almost too good to be true. Can you, break it down? How does this, if this, then that magic actually work?
Of course. So that's called a trigger. It's the event that kicks off the automation. Like, think about getting an email with a specific attachment. And that's the action, what happens because of the trigger. So maybe that action is saving that attachment to, let's say, a specific folder in your cloud storage.
So if I'm stuck manually adding data to spreadsheets, Power Automate could do it for me. That's like a game changer. I practically live in spreadsheets.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a key Power Automate feature integration. It's seamless with Microsoft's apps, Office 365, SharePoint, but it also connects with tons of other apps, Dropbox, Salesforce, even social media. It's automation across your entire digital world.
Okay, now that's impressive. Breaking down those walls between all the apps we use daily. But honestly, how easy is this tool to use? I'm imagining a complex interface with a million buttons and menus.
Not at all. Power Automate is designed to be user-friendly, truly. You don't need a tech degree to build these automations. In fact, for beginners, there's a library of pre-built templates for common tasks.
Templates, you say? So even someone who's not that tech savvy can jump in and start automating right away.
Exactly. These templates are like blueprints for things like collecting data from forms, setting up approvals, even scheduling your social media posts. It's a great way to get started and see the power of automation firsthand.
That's a relief. But what about those who want to go beyond the basics? Is there room for customization, or are we stuck with just the pre-built stuff?
Here's where things get really interesting. Power Automate, it's not just point and click. You can customize things in a big way. Beyond those templates, you can build unique workflows with logic, loops, conditional statements, even connect to new apps using APIs.
Wait, APIs, isn't that coding territory? I thought we were escaping the coding world.
APIs, they do require a bit of tech know-how, but Power Automate makes it pretty accessible. The process is streamlined, so you don't have to be a coding expert to connect to new apps and services. It's all about giving users the power to create custom solutions that fit their needs.
That's amazing. We've got this versatile tool that can connect apps, automate tons of tasks, and it works for both beginners and advanced users. It's like the Swiss Army knife of automation. But let's get real. Why should our listener care about all of this?
That's the big question, right? It's not about becoming an automation expert just because. It's about reclaiming your time. Imagine if you could offload those tedious tasks to Power Automate. Think of what you could accomplish.
Yeah, like taking back those hours spent on mindless clicking and typing. But can you give us some concrete examples? Like, paint a picture for our listener. How can this benefit their daily lives?
Absolutely. Let's start with something we all deal with. Email overload. Those generic responses you send, daily confirmations, thank yous, even out-of-office replies. With Power Automate, you get an email with a specific subject, and it automatically sends a personalized response.
Okay, that's a big time saver for sure. I'm already seeing the possibilities. But what about something a bit more complex? Say our listeners constantly tracking down approvals for documents.
That's a classic problem, and Power Automate can be a lifesaver. Imagine you upload a document, and it automatically notifies everyone who needs to approve it, tracks their approvals, even sends reminders if someone's lagging. No more endless emails or lost paperwork, just smooth sailing approvals.
That sounds like a dream come true for anyone who's dealt with the dreaded approval process. But what about our listeners who are building their online presence? Can Power Automate help with managing social media?
Absolutely. It can be a game changer for social media. scheduling posts across platforms, tracking engagement, even automatically responding to comments and messages. It's like a personal social media manager, working tirelessly to boost your presence while you focus on creating great content.
Like a social media manager that never sleeps or needs coffee. But let's not forget our data-driven listeners. Can Power Automate handle data collection and analysis?
Oh, it's a data whiz. It can pull data from spreadsheets, databases, even social media. Then it can analyze that data, generate reports, even create visuals. It's like having an automated data analyst working behind the scenes, crunching numbers and finding those hidden insights.
Now that's impressive. Sounds like Power Automate can handle anything from basic email replies to complex data analysis. What about task management? Can it help us stay organized and on top of our to-do lists?
Absolutely. Whether you're juggling multiple projects or part of a big team, Power Automate can be your ultimate productivity buddy. It can create tasks automatically, assign them to team members, set deadlines, and send reminders. It's like having a personal project manager, keeping everyone on track and making sure nothing falls through the cracks.
Wow, we've covered so much, and it seems like Power Automate can automate practically anything. But let's zero in on one area where it really shines: automating tasks within SharePoint lists. Now, some of our listeners might not be familiar with SharePoint.
Right, you are right about that. SharePoint lists, they're basically online spreadsheets, but way more powerful. They're great for organizing and managing data within teams or an organization. But when you have a lot of data, things can get a bit messy. That's where Power Automate steps in and makes it much, much easier.
Okay, so SharePoint lists are like supercharged spreadsheets. How does Power Automate make them even more awesome?
Well, first of all, it automates all those repetitive tasks that would normally eat up your time. Imagine you have a list for tracking project requests. Power Automate can create a flow that automatically generates a new task in your project management tool every time a new request is added to the list. No more manual entry, no more switching between apps, just pure efficiency.
That sounds like a huge time saver, especially for teams dealing with a ton of project requests. But what other magic can Power Automate do with SharePoint lists?
This is where it gets really cool. Power Automate can create these powerful approval workflows within SharePoint lists. Say you got a list to track expense reports. You can use Power Automate to automatically route those reports to the right people, track their status, and even send out notifications if something needs attention. It's like having a built-in approval system.
That's incredibly helpful. No more chasing signatures or wondering where things are in the process. But what about staying informed about updates or changes within a list? Can Power Automate help with that?
Absolutely. One of the most valuable features is notification alerts. Say you have a list for tracking customer issues. You can set it up so you automatically get an email or text anytime a new issue is reported, or if an existing one is escalated. It's like a personal alert system, keeping you informed without constantly checking things manually.
That's a game changer for anyone who needs to stay in the loop without being glued to their screen 24/7. But what about keeping data consistent across different platforms? Can Power Automate help with synchronizing data between SharePoint lists and other systems?
You bet. Data synchronization, that's another area where Power Automate excels. Say you have a list for tracking customer contact info, and you also use a CRM system for customer data. Power Automate can sync the data between those two systems so everything's always up to date.
That's a lifesaver. No more manually updating in multiple places or worrying about things being inconsistent. But let's talk teamwork for a sec. Can Power Automate help with assigning tasks within SharePoint lists?
Absolutely. The task assignment features are a huge help for teams or anyone who delegates work. Let's say you have a list for tracking marketing tasks. Power Automate can automatically assign those tasks to team members based on their skills or workload. It's like having an automated task dispatcher, making sure work is distributed efficiently and everyone knows what they need to do.
Okay, I'm officially blown away. We've only just scratched the surface of what Power Automate can do, and it's clear this tool has the potential to revolutionize the way we work and live.
It really is remarkable what you can achieve with this tool, and we're just getting started.
Before we move on to part 2 of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. If you could automate just one tedious task in your life using Power Automate, what would it be? Think about it, and we'll be back soon to explore even more amazing possibilities.
Stay tuned. There's so much more to discover in the world of Power Automate. Welcome back to our deep dive on Power Automate. We've explored quite a bit, from the basics of if this, then that's some pretty impressive use cases, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's amazing what this tool can do.
Now let's shift gears a bit and look at some of the finer points that can really take your automations to that next level.
I'm all ears. I'm starting to grasp how powerful this tool is, but I'm sure there are still, hidden gems waiting to be uncovered. What are some of those pro tips that can make our workflows even smoother and more effective?
One of the key things that makes Power Automate so versatile is the concept of, well, they're called expressions. Think of them as mini formulas within your workflows that let you manipulate data and create more, well, complex logic.
Expressions, huh? Sounds interesting, but maybe a little intimidating. Can you give us a real-world example of how these expressions actually work?
Sure. Let's say you've got a workflow that automatically processes, let's say, customer orders from your online store. Now, instead of treating every order the same, you can use expressions to, let's say, calculate discounts based on the order value. Like you could have an expression that applies a 10% discount if the order total is over, say, $100.
Okay, I see how expressions could be powerful. It's like adding a layer of, well, intelligence to the workflow, letting it make decisions based on specific criteria. But are these expressions hard to learn? Do I need, a math degree to use them?
Not at all. Power Automate has a user-friendly interface for building expressions, and there are tons of resources, online documentation, tutorials, you name it. They use a syntax that's similar to Excel formulas, so if you're comfortable with spreadsheets, you'll be fine.
Phew, that's a relief. I can manage a spreadsheet formula or two. But even with the most carefully designed workflows, sometimes things don't go as planned, right? What happens when something unexpected pops up and throws a wrench in the works?
That's a great point. No system is perfect. And even with Power Automate, errors can happen. It could be anything, an API connection going down, a missing file, or maybe the data is formatted incorrectly. That's why having a solid error handling plan is so important for any automation system.
Okay, so how does Power Automate handle those unexpected hiccups? Does it just crash and burn, leaving us to scramble and fix everything?
Thankfully not. Power Automate has several ways to deal with errors gracefully. One approach is to use what are called scopes to isolate specific actions within your workflow. So if an error occurs within a scope, it won't necessarily bring down the entire workflow.
So it's like damage control, right? You're containing the error to prevent it from, spreading and causing a system-wide meltdown.
Exactly. You can also use conditions and what are called error handling actions to create alternative paths for your workflow if an error pops up. Let's say you're trying to process a file, but it's missing. Instead of stopping everything, you can use a condition to check if the file's there. If it is, great, the workflow continues. But if it's missing, you can trigger an error handling action, like sending a notification or logging the error for, later review.
So instead of just stopping, the workflow can adapt and respond to the situation. It's got a bit of common sense.
Precisely. And that leads us to another important concept, variables. You can think of them as containers for storing data that you can use throughout your workflow.
So instead of putting values directly into your actions, you use variables to make your workflows more flexible, right?
Exactly. Say you have a workflow that sends welcome emails to new customers. Instead of hard-coding their name and email address into each action, you store that info in variables. That way, if their info changes, you just update the variable once, instead of changing every single action in the workflow.
Makes sense. It's like having a central hub for important data that you can access and update easily.
Right. Variables make workflows not just more flexible, but also more readable and easier to maintain. They help you create cleaner, more organized automations that are, well, less likely to have errors.
Okay, I'm seeing how these small things can really make a difference in how well our workflows work. But before we unleash these automations on the world, we got to make sure they actually work the way they're supposed to, right?
Absolutely. Testing is super important. Before you use any workflow, you need to test it thoroughly to be sure it's doing what it's supposed to, and that you've accounted for all the possibilities, even those rare cases. Power Automate has several tools for testing, including a debug mode that lets you step through the workflow and see exactly what's happening at each step.
That sounds super useful. It's like being able to peek inside and see the inner workings of the automation.
Exactly. Debug mode helps you find exactly where an error is happening or why something's not working as expected. It's a fantastic tool for troubleshooting and fine-tuning your automations.
Testing might seem like an extra step, but it sounds like it could prevent a lot of headaches in the long run. It's much better to catch and fix those errors early on than to deal with a broken workflow right in the middle of something important.
Couldn't agree more. Now, switching gears a bit, let's talk about, well, what if you have a favorite app or service that doesn't have a built-in connector in Power Automate? That's where custom connectors come in. They let you connect Power Automate to basically any app or service that has an API.
Custom connectors, huh? Sounds interesting, but I'm a little fuzzy on the API part. Can you, break that down for me?
Sure. APIs, or application programming interfaces, are basically sets of rules and specifications that allow different software applications to talk to each other. Think of it like a universal language that apps can use to exchange information and instructions.
Okay, so custom connectors act like translators, letting Power Automate, understand, and talk to apps that don't have pre-built connectors. But creating a custom connector sounds like it requires some serious coding chops. Can the average person actually do this?
While it does require some technical knowledge, Power Automate has made the process much, much simpler. There's a user-friendly interface that walks you through the steps, defining those API endpoints, setting up authentication, and testing the connection. You don't need to be a coding whiz to create a basic custom connector.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. It sounds like custom connectors open up a whole new world of possibilities for automation. But with all this talk about automation, it's important to remember the human element, right? We're not trying to, replace humans with robots or anything.
You got it. Power Automate. It's not about getting rid of human involvement, but about helping humans work smarter and more efficiently. By automating those repetitive tasks, those time-consuming tasks, we free up our time to focus on those things that need creativity, problem-solving, and that human touch.
It's like we're giving ourselves a superpower, being able to hand off those mundane chores to our digital helpers so we can focus on more meaningful work.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual productivity. Power Automate can transform how teams and organizations work too. By automating processes, improving communication, and streamlining workflows, it really encourages collaboration, boosts efficiency, and ultimately leads to, better results for everyone involved.
It sounds like Power Automate can be a powerful tool for making positive changes, both individually and for organizations. But like any powerful tool, there are potential downsides and risks to think about. What are some things we should be aware of as we embrace the power of automation?
That's a really important question. While automation can bring so many benefits, it's crucial to approach it, thoughtfully and responsibly. We need to think about the potential impact on the workforce and make sure that we're not just automating jobs away without creating new opportunities. We also need to be aware of potential bias in automated systems and take steps to ensure that they're fair, equitable, and that we can hold them accountable.
So it's not just about automating everything we can, it's about finding that balance between human creativity and technological efficiency, using automation as a tool to help us, not to, diminish what makes us human.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's about having open, honest conversations about the ethical aspects and the impact automation has on society. We need to make sure everyone has the opportunity to benefit from these technological advancements and that we're using automation to create a better future for all.
It's a complex topic, and there are no easy answers, but it's a conversation we absolutely need to be having.
Yeah.
As we move into this increasingly automated world, it's crucial to approach these technologies responsibly and with a commitment to using them for good.
Couldn't agree more. And with that in mind, let's shift gears and explore another fascinating aspect of Power Automate.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've really gone deep into Power Automate, explored its features, capabilities, even some pro tips. But now I think it's time to, zoom out a bit and think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the, the nitty-gritty and miss the forest for the trees, so to speak. Power Automate, it's not just another piece of software. It's really a fundamental change in how we work and interact with technology in general.
That's a great point. We've talked about the potential for, being more efficient and getting more done. But what about the impact on a larger scale, on individuals, businesses, even society as a whole?
Well, one of the most significant things, I think, is the democratization of automation. Power Automate and these other no-code platforms, they're giving everyday people the ability to automate things, regardless of their tech background.
So it's not just for giant corporations with huge IT departments anymore. Small businesses, entrepreneurs, anyone can use automation to, level the playing field a bit.
Exactly. This has the power to, let people take charge of their work, streamline their processes, even start new businesses. We're seeing this rise of what they call the citizen developer.
Yeah.
Someone who uses these no-code tools to build solutions without needing to write any code at all.
That's pretty cool. It's like giving everyone the tools to be their own, tech innovator. But let's not, shy away from the tough questions. What about the concerns about, jobs being replaced as automation becomes more common?
It's a valid concern, for sure, and one we need to be, proactive about addressing. While automation can definitely handle those repetitive rule-based tasks, it also opens up, new opportunities for different kinds of roles and skills. We'll probably see more demand for people who can design, implement, and manage these automated systems, right?
So it's not about like taking away jobs, but changing them, focusing on things that need human creativity, problem solving, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's also important to consider, the ethical side of automation. As we let algorithms and systems make more decisions, we need to be sure they're designed and used responsibly, fairly, and without bias.
That's a really important point. We can't just hand things over to technology without thinking about the consequences, right? We need to be aware of the values built into these systems and make sure they, align with what we want as a society.
Transparency and accountability, they're essential. We need to understand how these systems work, how decisions are being made, and have ways to address potential errors or, biases
Yeah.
might creep in.
So it's a shared responsibility, right? Developers, policymakers, users, we all have a role to play in shaping the future of automation in a way that benefits, everyone.
Absolutely. It's about finding that right balance, that sweet spot between human ingenuity and, technological efficiency. Using automation to enhance our capabilities, not to replace what makes us human.
As we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Power Automate and this whole trend of no-code automation, it's a huge shift in how we interact with technology. It's got incredible potential, but we need to be thoughtful and responsible with it.
It's an exciting time to be part of this technological evolution. We have the power to shape the future of automation and use it to create a world that's, more fair, more efficient, and just a better place for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We hope you've learned some valuable things today and feel inspired to explore how automation can help you achieve more, work smarter, and just, live a better life.
And until next time, happy automating.